The morning sun rose over the mining colony on Kepler 442b, just like it had for the past 15 years. Jake Morrison stood at the window of the orbital defense station, watching the planet below as 3 million people started their daily work. The cities looked peaceful from space, with their white buildings and green parks scattered across the brown landscape. Jake had commanded this station since the colony began. He was 42 years old now, with gray hair at his temples and lines around his eyes. His wife and 2 kids lived down on the planet in New Denver, the largest city. Every morning he looked down at that city and smiled, knowing his family was safe. "Morning, Captain," said his second officer, Lieutenant Ben Walsh. Ben was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes and a quick smile. He had joined the Defense Force straight from Earth Academy. "Morning, Ben. Any news from the night shift?" Jake asked, turning away from the window. "All quiet, sir. The mining teams are already heading out to Sector 7. Director Grant says they found a new vein of rare metals yesterday." Jake nodded. Lisa Grant ran the colony operations down on the planet. She was smart and tough, the kind of person who could keep 3 million people fed and happy on a world far from Earth. The colony produced rare Earth metals that powered human ships across the galaxy. It was important work, and Jake was proud to protect it. The defense station had 12 people working at any time. They monitored space around the planet, tracked ships coming and going, and made sure no pirates or raiders bothered the colony. It was usually boring work. Jake liked boring work. Boring meant safe. At lunchtime, Jake called his wife Amy down on the planet. She taught school in New Denver, helping young kids learn to read and write. "How are things up there?" Amy asked. Her face appeared on the communication screen, smiling and beautiful as always. "Same as always, quiet and peaceful," Jake said. "How are the kids?" "Sam lost another tooth yesterday. He wants to know if the Tooth Fairy can find him on an alien planet." Jake laughed. Sam was 7 years old and asked questions about everything. His daughter Emma was 10 and much more serious. Both kids had been born on Kepler 442b. This was the only home they knew. "Tell him the Tooth Fairy has a very good tracking system," Jake said. They talked for a few more minutes before Amy had to go back to her class. Jake felt the warm feeling he always got when talking to his family. This was why he did this job. To keep them safe and happy. The attack came at 2:17 in the afternoon station time. "Captain," Ben shouted from his station, "I'm reading multiple contacts coming out of hyperspace." Jake ran to the main screen. Dozens of ships appeared in space around the planet. But these were not human ships or any ships Jake recognized. They looked organic, like they had been grown instead of built. The hulls curved and twisted like living things. Some of them looked like giant insects. "What are those?" Ben asked, his voice shaking. Jake had seen pictures in intelligence reports, but he had never seen them in real life. "Zephyrian hive ships," he said quietly. The Zephyrians were one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They traveled in large groups, consuming everything they found. They ate other species, destroyed planets, and left nothing behind. Human intelligence said they had wiped out 17 different worlds in the past 5 years. "Sir, I count 47 ships," reported Sergeant Kelly Park from the weapons station. Kelly was a veteran who had served in the border wars. She never got excited about anything, but now her hands were shaking. "Send a message to the colony," Jake ordered. "Full evacuation alert, everyone to the shelters." "Already sent, sir," Ben said. Director Grant confirms they received it. Jake looked at his defense station. He had 2 laser cannons, some missiles, and a small fighter bay with 6 ships. The Zephyrians had 47 vessels, some of them the size of small moons. The math was simple and terrible. "Sir, they're moving toward the planet," Kelly said. Jake watched the alien ships spread out in formation. They moved like a swarm of insects, coordinated and deadly. He had read the reports about what happened to colonies that faced the Zephyrians. There were never any survivors. "Get me a channel to the lead ship," Jake said. "Channel open, sir." Jake took a deep breath. Maybe he could negotiate. Maybe he could buy time for people to escape. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Kepler Colony Defense Station. You are entering human space without permission. Please state your intentions." The answer came as a series of clicking and buzzing sounds. The translation computer worked for a moment, then displayed text on the screen. We come to feed. You will provide food. This is a peaceful mining colony, Jake said. We have no quarrel with your people. Please leave our space. More clicking and buzzing. The translation came back. All flesh feeds the hive. Your resistance feeds the hive. Your fear feeds the hive. Jake closed the channel. There would be no negotiation. Sir, they're launching smaller ships, Kelly reported. Hundreds of them, heading for the planet. Jake watched the swarm of attack craft dive toward Kepler 442b. Down on the planet, his wife and children were probably in a shelter right now, scared and confused. 3 million people were about to die, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Ben, send out the distress signal, Jake said. All frequencies. Maximum power. Ben's fingers flew over his controls. Signal transmitting, sir. Jake looked at the microphone in his hand. What could he say? How could he explain that an entire human colony was about to be destroyed? He pressed the button and began to speak. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Kepler Colony to any human vessel. We are under attack by the Zephyrian Hive. They have 47 ships and we cannot stop them. They are attacking the planet now. We have 3 million civilians down there, including women and children. Jake paused, watching the alien fighters reach the planet's atmosphere. Explosions began to light up the surface. The colony defense station is still operational, but we won't last long. If anyone receives this message, please help us. We have families here. We have kids who were born on this world. They don't deserve to die like this. More explosions on the planet. Jake could see the lights of New Denver flickering. This is our final transmission. The Zephyrians are jamming our communications now. If you receive this, remember us. Remember that we tried to protect our people. And if you can, make them pay for what they did here. The transmission ended. Jake set down the microphone and looked at his crew. Ben was crying. Kelly was loading the weapons, even though they all knew it was hopeless. Sir, what do we do now? Ben asked. Jake looked at the planet where his family lived. The explosions were spreading across the surface like a disease. Now we fight, he said. We make them work for it. The defense station's weapons opened fire on the nearest Zephyrian ship. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain, but it was all they could do. Jake's message traveled through hyperspace, carried by the emergency beacon network that connected all human colonies. It would take days to reach the core worlds where the real human fleet waited. But Jake Morrison did not know that his desperate call for help would bring something that would terrify the entire galaxy. Admiral Steve Parker was eating breakfast in his quarters aboard the dreadnought Retribution when the emergency alarm started screaming. He had been in the military for 30 years, and he knew the difference between a drill and real danger. This was real danger. Steve was 55 years old, with silver hair and scars on his hands from the Martian Wars. He commanded the Third Fleet, humanity's most powerful military force. Most people in the galaxy thought the Third Fleet was just another collection of human warships. They were very wrong. Admiral, to the bridge, came the voice over the speakers. Steve grabbed his uniform jacket and ran. The bridge of the Retribution was dark and quiet, filled with the soft glow of computer screens. Captain Amy Sullivan stood at the main display, her face pale with worry. Amy was one of the best officers in the fleet, smart and calm under pressure. If she looked worried, something terrible was happening. What do we have, Amy? Steve asked. Distress signal from Kepler Colony, sir. They're under attack by the Zephyrian Hive. Amy touched her control panel, and Jake Morrison's voice filled the bridge. Steve listened to the desperate message. 3 million civilians, women and children. A mining colony with almost no defenses facing 47 Hive ships. His jaw tightened as he heard the explosions in the background and the fear in Jake's voice. When did this transmission arrive? Steve asked. 14 minutes ago, sir. The message traveled through 6 hyperspace relays. The attack probably started 3 days ago. Steve closed his eyes for a moment. 3 days. The colony was probably already dead. But that did not matter. The Zephyrians had attacked human civilians. They had killed human families. That could not go unpunished. Amy, send the activation codes to all ships in the Third Fleet. Full mobilization in 6 hours. Sir, that's 47 ships. If we mobilize the entire fleet, the Galactic Council will ask questions. Steve looked at Amy with cold eyes. Let them ask. Send the codes. Amy nodded and began transmitting orders. Across human space, warships that had been hiding in secret bases began to wake up. These were not the ships that other species saw at diplomatic meetings. These were humanity's real weapons. Colonel Nick Davis received his orders while training with his Marines on the moon base near Earth. Nick was 40 years old, built like a tank, with cybernetic implants that made him faster and stronger than any normal human. He commanded the 1st Shock Marine Division, soldiers who were designed for one purpose: killing things that thought they could not be killed. Listen up, Nick shouted to his troops. We have a mission. The bugs hit Kepler Colony 3 days ago. Civilians are dead. We're going to make them pay. The Marines cheered. These were not ordinary soldiers. Each one had been genetically modified and surgically enhanced. They could survive in space without suits, fight for days without rest, and heal from wounds that would kill normal people. They were humanity's answer to a hostile galaxy. Dr. Helen Brooks was working in her laboratory on Europa when the call came. Helen was a small woman with gray hair and gentle eyes, but she was also the most dangerous person in human space. She created weapons that could destroy entire species. Dr. Brooks, this is Admiral Parker. I need the Zephyrian package. Helen sighed. She had hoped she would never need to use that particular weapon. Admiral, are you sure? Once we use it, there's no going back. They killed our people, Helen. Our children, I'm sure. Helen walked to a sealed vault and entered her codes. Inside was a single vial of clear liquid. It looked harmless, but it contained a virus designed specifically to target Zephyrian brain chemistry. She had created it by studying captured Hive drones, learning how their minds worked, then designing something that would cause them unimaginable pain. I'll bring it personally, Helen said. Captain Tony Mitchell commanded the heavy cruiser Thunderstrike from his position in the asteroid belt. Tony was a quiet man who rarely smiled, but he was the best tactical officer in the fleet. When Tony's ship arrived at a battle, the enemy usually surrendered or died within minutes. Tony, this is Steve Parker. How fast can you get to Kepler 442b? If I push the engines, 18 hours, sir. Push them. And Tony, bring the gravity mines. Tony smiled for the first time in months. The gravity mines were weapons that could crush enemy ships from the inside out. They were banned by 17 different galactic treaties. Tony did not care about treaties when human civilians were dead. Lieutenant Commander Kate Rogers was aboard her electronic warfare ship, the Phantom, when she received her orders. Kate was 28 years old, brilliant with computers, and capable of breaking into any alien communication system. Her ship was invisible to most sensors, and her crew could shut down entire enemy fleets with their computer viruses. Kate, I need you to find out everything about the Zephyrian force at Kepler, Steve said over the secure channel. Already working on it, sir. I've hacked into 3 of their scout ships. The main force has 1,012 vessels, all bioships. They're led by a Queen-class command ship. Steve felt cold anger in his chest. Over 1,000 ships against a defenseless colony. What about survivors? The colony is completely destroyed, sir, but I'm reading life signs in the underground shelters. Maybe 50,000 people are still alive. Steve closed his eyes. 50,000 out of 3 million. The Zephyrians would pay for every single death. Kate, I want you to prepare the neural virus package. Full spectrum attack on their communication networks. Sir, that will cause permanent brain damage to every Zephyrian in the system. Good. Within 6 hours, the most powerful fleet in galactic history was assembled at the rally point near Jupiter. 47 ships that looked like ordinary human vessels, but carried weapons that could destroy entire star systems. The crews were not ordinary humans either. Each person had been selected, trained and modified for warfare against alien species. Steve stood on the bridge of the Retribution and looked at his fleet. These ships had been humanity's secret for 20 years. While other species thought humans were peaceful traders and explorers, the real human military had been preparing for war. All ships, this is Admiral Parker. 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Hive attacked Kepler Colony. They killed 3 million civilians, including women and children. They think we are weak because we have been peaceful. They are about to learn why humanity has survived in a hostile galaxy. Steve paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Each person had lost friends or family to alien attacks over the years. Each person was ready to show the galaxy what humans really were when their families were threatened. We are not going to Kepler to rescue survivors. We are going to send a message. When we are finished, every species in the galaxy will know what happens to anyone who attacks human civilians. No prisoners, no mercy, complete destruction. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, carrying death toward the Zephyrian Hive. In 18 hours, they would arrive at Kepler 442b and show the galaxy why humans were the most dangerous species in known space. The Zephyrians were about to discover that some prey fights back. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, like ghosts appearing from darkness. Admiral Steve Parker stood on the bridge of the Retribution and stared at the scene before him. The planet that had once been home to 3 million people was now brown and dead. Smoke rose from the cities and the orbital stations were broken metal floating in space. "Sensor report," Steve said quietly. Captain Amy Sullivan read from her display. 1012. Zephyrian bioships in orbit around the planet. They're feeding on the surface, sir. Converting organic matter into fuel for their fleet. Steve's hands tightened into fists. The Zephyrians were eating the dead colonists. They were consuming the bodies of children and families who had done nothing wrong except live in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Any survivors?" Steve asked. "I'm reading life signs from the underground shelters. Approximately 50,000 people are still alive, but the Zephyrians are digging them out. We estimate 12 hours before they reach the deepest shelters." Steve nodded. 50,000 people out of 3 million. The math was terrible, but those 50,000 were going to live. He would make sure of that. All ships, battle stations. Amy, signal the fleet. Operation begins in 60 seconds. The Zephyrian Queen floated in her massive command ship above the planet. She was ancient, over 300 years old, and she had consumed the populations of dozens of worlds. Her bioship was 5 miles long, covered in weapons that looked like giant claws and teeth. Around her, smaller vessels moved like insects, coordinated by her telepathic commands. She felt the human ships arrive before her sensors detected them. 47 vessels, small and weak compared to her mighty swarm. The Queen's mental laughter echoed through the minds of her children. More food had arrived to feed the hive. Then Lieutenant Commander Kate Rogers began her work. Kate sat in the dark bridge of her stealth ship Phantom, her fingers dancing across holographic keyboards. She had spent years studying Zephyrian biology, learning how their minds connected to their ships. Now she was going to use that knowledge to destroy them. "Neural virus ready for deployment," Kate announced to Admiral Parker. "Do it." Kate pressed a single button, and hell came to the Zephyrian fleet. The virus spread through their telepathic network in seconds. Every Zephyrian drone, every warrior, every queen felt their minds explode with agony. The virus attached itself to their pain receptors and amplified every sensation 1,000 times. The simple act of breathing became torture. The beating of their own hearts felt like hammers inside their chests. Across the Zephyrian fleet, ships began to drift as their crews writhed in agony. The perfect coordination of the swarm collapsed as every individual fought against the fire, burning in their brains. "Phase 2, Admiral Parker commanded. Captain Tony Mitchell fired the gravity mines from his cruiser Thunderstrike. The weapons looked like small black spheres, but each one contained technology that could bend space and time. Tony had positioned his ship perfectly, and the mines scattered throughout the Zephyrian formation. When the mines activated, reality twisted around them. Gravity wells formed in empty space, pulling the bioships toward points of crushing force. The organic hulls of the alien vessels cracked and collapsed as their own mass was turned against them. Ships that had survived asteroid impacts and plasma weapons were destroyed by the fundamental forces of the universe. Direct hit on 12 vessels, Tony reported. Enemy formation is breaking apart. But the real terror was yet to come. Colonel Nick Davis and his Marines launched from their assault ships in small attack pods. Each pod carried 20 enhanced soldiers, genetically modified humans who had been designed for one purpose: killing aliens in close combat. Nick's pod crashed through the hull of a Zephyrian bioship, and he stepped out into a nightmare of organic corridors and living walls. The ship's interior pulsed like the inside of a giant heart. Warrior drones rushed toward him, their claws extended and their mandibles clicking with rage. Nick moved faster than any normal human could move. His cybernetic implants boosted his speed and strength, while his enhanced reflexes let him see attacks before they happened. His rifle fired molecular disruptor rounds that broke down organic matter at the atomic level. The first Zephyrian warrior dissolved before it could reach him. The second and third suffered the same fate. Nick walked through, the bioship like death itself, his Marines following behind him. They moved with perfect coordination, each soldier covering the others as they advanced deeper into the alien vessel. Sergeant Peterson, take your squad to the engine room, Nick ordered over his communication system. Staff Sergeant Adams, secure the command center. Sergeant Carl Peterson led his team through the twisting corridors of the bioship. His squad carried weapons that could cut through any known material and armor that could stop anything short of a nuclear blast. When Zephyrian warriors tried to stop them, Peterson's team cut them down with surgical precision. Staff Sergeant Julie Adams commanded a squad of automated battle drones along with her human soldiers. The drones were small, fast machines that could adapt to any enemy within seconds of contact. When they encountered Zephyrian defenses, the drones learned, adapted, and overcame them faster than any organic mind could respond. Across the Zephyrian fleet, similar scenes played out on dozens of ships. Human Marines moved through alien vessels, like a plague, destroying everything they found. The enhanced soldiers felt no fear, showed no mercy, and never stopped advancing. Dr. Helen Brooks watched the battle from her laboratory ship and prepared for the final phase. Her bioweapon was ready, a virus designed specifically to target Zephyrian physiology. Unlike the neural virus that caused pain, this weapon would simply end them. Admiral, the biological weapon is ready for deployment, Helen reported. Wait, Steve said. I want them to know what's happening first. Steve opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian Queen's command ship. Through the static of jamming signals and the screams of dying aliens, his voice carried clearly. This is Admiral Steve Parker of the Human Defense Fleet. You attacked our colony. You killed our families, you ate our children. We are here to collect payment for your crimes. The Zephyrian Queen's response came as a series of clicks and screeches that the translation system converted to text. You are food. All things are food for the hive. Your resistance only makes the feeding sweeter. Steve smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We'll see about that. Dr. Brooks, deploy the weapon. Helen released her creation into the battle zone. The biological agent spread through space, seeking out Zephyrian DNA. When it found its targets, it worked quickly and efficiently. Zephyrian warriors simply stopped existing, their bodies breaking down at the cellular level. Within minutes, the mighty swarm that had terrorized dozens of worlds was reduced to floating debris and empty bioships. The Queen's vessel drifted, powerless, its crew dead or dying from Helen's weapon. Sir, all enemy vessels are down, Amy reported. No Zephyrian life signs detected. Steve looked at the wreckage of the alien fleet. 1,000 ships destroyed in less than an hour. An entire species that had seemed unstoppable, ended by 47 human vessels and their enhanced crews. Send recovery teams to the planet, Steve ordered. Get our people out of those shelters, and Amy, start recording everything. The galaxy needs to see this. The rescue ships descended through the smoke and ash that covered Kepler 442b like a gray blanket. Admiral Steve Parker watched from orbit as his teams worked to reach the underground shelters where 50,000 colonists waited in darkness. These were the survivors, the lucky ones who had made it to safety when the Zephyrians attacked. Captain Jake Morrison was pulled from the wreckage of his defense station after 4 days trapped in the twisted metal. His left arm was broken and burns covered half his face, but he was alive. When the rescue team told him about his family, Jake cried for the first time since he was a child. "Amy and the kids?" Jake asked through his tears. "Safe, sir," said the medic. "They were in shelter. 7 when we found them. Your wife wants to see you." Jake was carried to the medical ship where his family waited. Amy held their children close, all 3 of them thin and scared but alive. When Jake saw them, he understood why Admiral Parker had brought such a powerful fleet to this dead world. Some things were worth any price to protect. Director Lisa Grant emerged from the deepest shelter carrying a little girl who had lost her parents. Lisa's hair was white with dust and her clothes were torn, but her eyes burned with anger. She had watched her colony die, seen 3 million people murdered by creatures that treated humans like food. "Admiral Parker," Lisa said when she met Steve on the rescue ship, "I want to thank you for coming for us." "I'm sorry we were too late to save more," Steve replied. Lisa shook her head. "You saved who you could, but I need to ask you something. What happens now? What happens to make sure this never happens again?" Steve looked at the woman who had kept 50,000 people alive in the darkness while monsters hunted them from above. "We send a message, Director. We make sure the galaxy understands what happens when someone attacks human civilians." Steve had already decided what to do. The battle had been recorded from every angle by dozens of cameras. Every weapon, every tactic, every moment of the Zephyrians' destruction had been captured in perfect detail. Now he was going to share that recording with every species in known space. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in her laboratory, studying the remains of Zephyrian bioships. The creature's technology was impressive, but it had been no match for human science. Helen had designed weapons that turned the aliens' own biology against them, and those weapons had worked perfectly. "Admiral, I've completed my analysis," Helen reported. "The Zephyrians are extinct. The biological weapon I deployed was designed to target their specific DNA sequence. Every member of their species in this star system is dead." Steve nodded. An entire species, wiped out in less than an hour by human technology. It should have felt like a victory, but Steve only felt tired. The Zephyrians had forced this outcome when they chose to attack defenseless families. Colonel Nick Davis stood in the cargo bay of his transport ship, looking at the bodies of his Marines. 3 soldiers had died in the boarding actions, killed by Zephyrian warriors in the last moments of the battle. Nick had served with these people for years. They were enhanced humans, stronger and faster than normal people, but they had still fled and died for the mission. "Sir, what do we tell their families?" asked Sergeant Peterson. "We tell them the truth," Nick said. "They died protecting human civilians from monsters. They died as heroes." Captain Amy Sullivan prepared the communication package that would change galactic history. The recording showed everything. The neural virus that drove the Zephyrians, insane with pain, the gravity mines that crushed their ships, the enhanced Marines who cut through alien warriors like they were made of paper, and the biological weapon that ended an entire species in minutes. "Admiral, the package is ready for transmission," Amy reported. "Send it on all frequencies. Every species, every government, every news network in the galaxy. I want everyone to see this." The recording began with Jake Morrison's desperate distress call from the dying colony. Then it showed the human fleet arriving, 47 ships against over 1,000 alien vessels. The aliens had laughed at such small numbers. Their laughter died quickly. The galaxy watched in growing horror as humanity revealed weapons that violated dozens of treaties. They saw soldiers who moved faster than any natural being could move. They witnessed technology that could bend space and time, viruses that could target specific DNA sequences, and electronic warfare that could shut down entire fleets with a single command. But the most terrifying part came at the end when Admiral Parker addressed the galaxy directly. He stood on the bridge of his ship still wearing his battle uniform, with the debris of the Zephyrian fleet floating behind him. "To all species who received this transmission," Steve said in a calm, quiet voice. 3 days ago, The Zephyrian Hive attacked a human mining colony. They killed 3 million civilians, including women and children. They thought we were weak because we have been peaceful. Steve paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of worlds. We are members of the Galactic Council because we choose to be. We follow your laws and respect your customs because we choose to. We are peaceful because we choose to be peaceful. But do not mistake our choice for weakness. The recording showed the biological weapon dissolving Zephyrian warriors. It displayed Marines tearing through alien defenses with their bare hands. It revealed ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts. The Zephyrians believed they were apex predators, Steve continued. They consumed 17 different worlds before they came to ours. They thought humans would be easy prey. They discovered that humanity does not forget attacks on our families, and we do not forgive the murder of our children. Director Grant appeared on screen standing beside Admiral Parker. She looked directly into the camera with eyes full of pain and determination. I watched my world burn, Lisa said. I saw children die because creatures from space thought we were food. But 50,000 of my people are alive today because humanity came for us. Because humans never abandon their own. The recording ended with a simple image, the wreckage of the Zephyrian Queen's command ship, with Dr. Brooks standing beside it holding the vial that had ended their species. We did not start this war, Steve said in the final moments of the transmission. But we finished it. Remember that when you decide how to treat human colonies in the future. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light, carried by hyperspace communication networks to every inhabited world. Within hours, trade routes around human space became the safest shipping lanes in known civilization. Pirates and raiders avoided human colonies like they carried plague. The Galactic Council's secret plans to limit human expansion were quietly deleted from their computers. On distant worlds where things that called themselves gods of war held court, they began to speak of humanity with something they had never felt before, respect tinged with fear. The galaxy learned that day why no species had ever successfully repeated an attack on human civilians. They learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their absolute commitment to protecting their own. And in the deep spaces between stars, where predators hunted for easy prey, they began to avoid systems with yellow suns and blue planets. Because now they knew what lived there and what happened to anyone foolish enough to threaten a human family.